Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking some seriously fascinating source material about the hidden and honestly almost entirely overlooked markers of low intelligence. We live in this world that is just completely obsessed with volume, speed, and having immediate answers for literally everything. But what if the real indicators of cognitive ability, or a lack thereof, are actually silent? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. We're looking at these subtle behaviors that most people completely miss. And I've got to say, the insights we're about to explore are probably going to fundamentally change how you evaluate the people around you, and yeah, maybe even yourself. So let's jump right in with this quote, "Intelligence isn't loud." I love this because it immediately flips the script on a massive cultural assumption we all kind of carry around. I mean, from the boardroom to the classroom, society is constantly mistaking volume and bluster for sheer brilliance, right? If someone is speaking the loudest, dominating the entire room, we just naturally assume, oh, they must be the smartest person here. But our source material argues the exact opposite. Real, genuine cognitive power doesn't actually need to shout to prove it exists. In fact, that constant, overwhelming need to be loud is very often just a compensatory mechanism masking deeper cognitive limits. And this really lays out our collective misconception perfectly. We all have this sort of Hollywood version of intelligence in our heads, right? It's loud, it's ultra-confident, it's highly performative. It's the quick-witted genius who always has a snappy comeback ready to go. But the data tells us true intelligence looks entirely different. It's quiet, it's adaptable, it's deeply aware. The capacity to really learn and process complex information isn't a performance for an audience, it's an internal mechanism. When we obsess over those loud, performative traits, we completely miss the true markers of a highly functional mind. Now, you might be wondering why we do this. Well, we are actually biologically wired to follow certainty. When someone speaks with absolute conviction, our brains just kind of relax. It feels safe to us. But that very dynamic is a massive trap, causing us to mistake the confident delivery of an idea for the actual quality and depth of the idea itself. All right, so that brings us right into section 1, the myth of loud intelligence and why we misjudge smarts. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the true engine of intelligence, which is cognitive flexibility. By definition, this is the underlying mental ability to seamlessly adapt your thinking to new, changing, or unplanned situations. So the absolute crucial point here is this. Intelligence is not just some static database of memorized facts. It is the agility of the software running those facts. It's all about how quickly you can update your mental models when you're suddenly presented with new data. If you lack this internal flexibility, honestly, all the loud confidence in the world cannot make up for your inability to adapt to a changing environment. Now, the source material actually identifies 11 specific behaviors that reveal a lack of cognitive ability. But for this explainer, we are going to zero right in on the 3 most critical: quiet blind spots, overconfidence, resistance to new ideas, and poor self-awareness. These are the subtle behavioral cues that wave a massive red flag about a person's cognitive flexibility. We're not talking about dramatic public failures here. These are quiet, everyday habits of mind that rigidly lock a person into place. So let's break them down one by one. Moving on to section 2, the trap of overconfidence and when certainty becomes a blind spot. Overconfidence signals a rigid mind, not a capable one. Look, it is incredibly energetic and charismatic to be certain, which is exactly why we naturally gravitate toward extremely confident leaders. Extreme confidence wins arguments, it closes deals, it gets things done. But under the hood, being overly certain is actually a subtle cue masking a total failure to recognize one's own limitations. A highly capable mind is always doing a background calculation of probability and doubt. It's constantly asking, wait, what if I'm wrong? Overconfidence literally eliminates that crucial step. It is the ultimate quiet indicator of low cognitive ability simply because it shuts down the intake of new information. Think about it. If you already believe you know everything perfectly, your brain simply stops learning. It's game over. This naturally leads us right into section 3, resisting new ideas, or the wall against change. When a mind lacks cognitive flexibility, encountering something unfamiliar doesn't spark curiosity, it sparks a defensive reaction. And here's exactly how that rigid, step-by-step process plays out. Step 1, you encounter a new idea. Now, for a flexible mind, this is an exciting opportunity. But for a mind with low cognitive ability, it immediately triggers step 2, feeling threatened. Because their understanding of the world is so fragile, anything new feels like a direct attack on their reality, which inevitably leads to step 3, rejecting it without processing. They don't pause to analyze the new idea. They don't weigh its merits. They just build a massive wall and shut it out entirely. This immediate, unthinking rejection is a glaring, quiet marker of low intelligence.
Let's shift to Section 4, poor self-awareness. This is all about missing the internal mirror. This is the final behavioral cue we are exploring from the source material today, and honestly, it's arguably the most vital. You cannot adapt if you cannot see your own starting point. Without an internal mirror, genuine cognitive flexibility is entirely mathematically impossible. Poor self-awareness is just a catastrophic cognitive blind spot. Why? Well, because the very definition of adaptability requires you to first recognize that what you are currently doing isn't working. If you lack self-awareness, you completely lack the ability to observe your own errors. You'll just continue to make the exact same mistakes, apply the exact same flawed logic, and inevitably blame external circumstances for your failures. You are completely blocked from making necessary mental adjustments. It is the ultimate quiet indicator that growth has just entirely stopped.
Which brings us to Section 5, why blind spots hide and the social camouflage.
So you might be thinking, if overconfidence, resistance to new ideas, and poor self-awareness are such glaring markers of low cognitive ability, how in the world do they go completely unnoticed in everyday life? How do people get away with this? Well, it comes down to social camouflage. It comes down to what is socially rewarded, which is bold claims and immediate answers. Society actually frequently rewards these exact blind spots. We promote the person who boldly stands up and says, "I have the absolute answer right now," even if they are totally wrong. We dangerously mistake this loud rigidity for strong leadership. But the reality is that this behavior stems from being cognitively limited. It is deeply rooted in mental rigidity and zero growth. These low intelligence markers go unnoticed because our social systems are actively set up to reward the camouflage rather than penalizing the rigidity hiding underneath it.
So, the ultimate takeaway from our source material today is this: the quiet blind spots say more than confidence ever could. True cognitive ability is measured not by how loud you are, not by how fast you can talk, and definitely not by how fiercely you defend your current opinions. It is measured by your quiet ability to adapt, to welcome new ideas without feeling personally threatened, and to clearly see your own limitations. Intelligence isn't a mic drop. It's a quiet, ongoing process of evolution.
And I want to leave you with this final, incredibly important question to chew on. What do your quiet blind spots say about you? I mean, it's super easy to spot these rigid behaviors in other people, right? But true cognitive flexibility requires turning that internal mirror on ourselves. Where are you overly confident? Where do you unthinkingly resist new ideas? Taking the time to assess our own cognitive flexibility is the quietest, yet by far the most powerful sign of actual intelligence. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to just keep questioning what you think you know. See you next time.